Alright, got the stream going. And what we're doing today is building that search interface. It's going to be full stack, and so I'm going to kind of start from the beginning, kind of rewind the clock and what we've already done a little bit in our code and kind of redo some of it even because I haven't completely set up my back end to be ready to go. So I'm going to kind of start from the ground floor on this. And let me get you guys the link to the live stream in the Discord so you can follow that if you wish. Or you could just watch my screen share. But what we're going to do is work on Tail Runner. And it's just my little demo app where I've got these entities. In this case, you know, what I'm looking at here was back on an old lab where you could, you know, search for a pet and give it a species and a min and a max age and a sort by. And I'm essentially going to set that up on my application. And we're going to set up the back end. We're going to start there. We're going to go all the way back to the database because I don't think my database is even ready to go. So we're going to get into the express routes. We're going to get into the database, and then we'll bring it into the React front end. And so we are going to be doing the full stack to kind of support this. And we're going to be doing it kind of piece at a time. You know, I'm not going to try and code it all at once. You know, we'll start with something kind of simple like the keywords, and then, you know, start doing these individual fields after that. And like I said, it might be one coding, you know, just a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow. I might get it all done today. We're just going to have to see how it goes a little bit as far as the timing goes. Okay, but this is essentially what we're going to build, but we got to build the full stack to support it. Another lab that you guys already kind of completed was, you know, setting up the back end. Which I'm going to essentially do is part of this, setting up the express routes to support some of these different optional parameters, right? So remember, that's kind of the first thing that we're sending these by query parameters up in the URL, and they were all optional. Okay, so this kind of started off with this lecture and how to get this all set up in the database. And then we set some of this up in the back end a little bit, and then now we get to actually bring in the front end. Okay, so this is the demo app that I've been using. Of course, you guys know the repo. And I'm going to push all the last updates I made. And what I was the last thing that I did was I just did some random troubleshooting and fixed a bug or two with my joy validation and data validation. Anyways, now the GitHub repo is up to date. And so I'll open this with code. And if I zoom in a little bit, I have a route here, which is my list route. So this is on dog owner. So if I kind of close all others, and I'm kind of showing the full express route, I've got /API/pet owners. And so if I hit a get route at API pet owners, that's this route right here. So this is getting all my pet owners, and I really don't do anything here besides call a function get all pet owners, which you can kind of see there if I hover over it, connects to my database, and it does a find. It's kind of a find all. So I'm going to have to refactor this because we're not doing a find all anymore. Really, this particular case, I'm not even setting up. I'm not set up in the back end, right? So I got to set up my back end and I got to set up my database to get this properly done. Now, remember that. So let's go back to the database. Remember to search by keywords. There is a $text function in Mongo that makes searching by keywords really easy. So I'm going to open up Mongo, and if I go to tail runner and I look at my pet owners, okay, I could see I've got what do I got? 5 documents. And the first thing that's worth noting is that the shape of these documents are all a little bit different, right? So not all of my objects are in the same shape. And what you'll notice is like I've got an orders array here and I've got a wish list array here. Whereas these guys don't have those things. So just pointing that out. Okay, but back to the point is there is an index that allows you to search by keywords. In other words, provide a keyword search on the database, and that was $text in MongoDB. $text index, text indexes. And so what I did was a wildcard text index. So maybe let me wildcard. All right, so this is the command, db collection name create index. It's kind of a wildcard called text. And you can read about what that does, but wildcard text indexes support text search, which is what we're looking to do. So this is the command. And I can open up a Mongo shell here. And let's use tail runner. So I'm on the right database. And let's put this index on the pet owners. Okay, so when you get this kind of response back, that means that it was successful. All right, so kind of going back into here, if I close that down, and now if I refresh my indexes, there it is, there's my text index. So that was kind of the first step to enable the keyword search. On the database side, you know, and so what that's going to allow us to do is search by maybe someone's first name, or search by someone's last name, or maybe by a dog name. You know, we could search the entire collection by pupper1 and only return, you know, the entities that have pupper1 associated with them. And it's worth noting, you know, some of the there might be a newer way of doing this. This is, you know, when they always put out new versions, I've kind of seen some things that, regardless, this will work. So, text index. Let's set the back end up. Now that we have that set up on the database side. So I do have this middleware has permission, so can view data. I'm pretty sure that of the users I have, they can all view data. So I don't think this middleware is going to be getting in the way of hitting my route. It should not be. I guess at this point I can just run and get the back end up and running. And before I even start to work with the front end now, let me just kind of get into Postman. And here's my login user and list all dog owners. So here's my backend route. So if I hit that, it says you are not logged in. Okay, I would expect some sort of error like that, which is good. So if I go to log in my user, and this is my admin. So Evan is now logged in, and now Evan can list all my dog owners. And so far so good. What we're going to allow the backend to do is accept some optional data from the query string. Right, so I'm going to kind of, just for now, I don't really need that. And it says to do, add a backend search interface functionality. Yes, that is something that was not done yet. So the way to do that is to get the keywords from the query string. So we start there. And we say something like, if there are keywords, and again, I think there's actually a new syntax for this. But the way that I've learned to do it is with what's called an aggregate pipeline, where you kind of get the data and transform the data like on a conveyor belt. And I kind of had a lecture on aggregation pipelines. Again, there might be a newer syntax to do this. But here, I'll make my, what's called my match variable. And so this is my object, my empty object. And if there are keywords, then we do a $ text. And so this is a Mongo query, right? So we're going to set this object's $ text. Again, to do this $ text, you have to enable the index on the database. And then here is the $ search operator built into Mongo. And we are searching for the keywords that come from the rec.query. So, you know, if you really wanted to, just to make sure that we're getting the keywords out of the rec.query, we could do that. Now, down below, we have a pipeline, and right now there's not much to our pipeline other than a match stage. $match is the match object. And now we need to here, this is the promise syntax, because I didn't mark this as an async method. Okay, so my Copilot is forcing me to do the promise syntax. I'm going to mark this as async so that I can do try catches. Try catch, and here I'll just res status yeah, let's just debug dog owner our error. If there's an error, we'll throw it in the into the console here. But I need a way of sending this pipeline into my database route. So I need to go back into my database module. Okay, so this one is get all pet owners, and it does not take in anything, and it kind of just queries everything. Kind of a select star kind of thing. I'm going to modify this to take in a pipeline object, and we'll connect to my database. Instead of doing a find, pet owners dot aggregate pipeline to array, and we're going to return that. So this aggregate pipeline returns what's called a cursor. You could take that cursor and convert it into an array and return that from the function. So the input is a pipeline, and if that pipeline is empty, it should be the equivalent of a select star, meaning get all the records and return all the records. So we've kind of refactored get all pet owners a little bit to take in an input. That's obviously our pipeline object, and return an array of data. So now we can say const owners, get all pet owners, send in the pipeline, get the data back into a variable, and then send that forward. Okay. So refactor that a little bit. Before I test the keywords, I want to kind of just do a select star. And see, the select star still works. Right, so notice it is saying that my keywords are undefined, which is this right here. Make this a little better. Keywords are keywords. So when you don't send keywords in, it's still getting back all of the data. And that's my last user, and that's my first user. But if I send some keywords, let's see what breaks. So here in this params, right, we've sent data in different places here. We've sent it in body, some of you have sent it in script, some of you guys have been playing all the way through all these different ways of sending data from the front end to the back end. But let's send keywords. And let's just send Jane. Well, on a glance, that worked, which is great. I kind of expected something to break because that's coding, but it says keywords are Jane. So keywords are Jane. And then we say if the keywords, we update the match.text. We then set up a match stage in our aggregation pipeline to be the match object. We then send this pipeline object into our function. It returns our array, and then we send the array. Cool. Let's just test it a little bit more because, you know, that's important. So we got Jane, and let's see if we could send a dog. Pupper1. So let's go here. And that got our Pupper1 back. That belongs to Henry. What if I say Pupper1 and Jane? This is where it gets a little dicey, but there we go. So you could see, again, this is being sent in the query string as part of the params. And we got that working from there. Cool. Let's boot up the front end and stop playing in Postman. Let's boot up the front end and play in React. And so our script there is build auto, and there's our front end. Now the first thing here is we're still getting our data, right? We refactored the back end and that didn't necessarily break anything out of the box. But now we get to actually add the search interface, right? So I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com, the component library that you know and love. We're going to go to the docs. We're going to build in a form with the text box. Pretty simple form. Horizontal form. Yeah, we'll just do a horizontal form, right? It's pretty simple. If you look at a form, they just have a bunch of rows. Row, row. So form, div class of row, and then you put your email in there, close the div. Another div class of row for everything that you want. So close the database module. I'm going to close the index module for now. I'm going to keep the express route open here. Kind of delete the comments that are no longer relevant. And let's get into the front end. Which is our pet owner list. And so this looks like the code for this. I'm just going to look at the console here. It does say fetching pet owners, which is coming right here. I'm just going to get that because I no longer do that. Use effect is a hook that determines that runs at different point in time. Now, if you have use effect coded with this second argument right here, this is one thing that I learned it, but like to really sink it in, like this is always a weird part of React. You know, there's different values that go into here that determine when use effect runs, and so. If you have an empty array here, if you have an empty array, it just runs on component mount. But if you have a variable in here, it runs anytime this variable changes. Now this variable is a hook. So anytime my delete counter hook changes, it's going to rerun use effect. Which kind of makes sense. If a user is deleted, you kind of want to update the interface, which is why this is currently set up this way. But obviously, it also runs on component mount. When the component mounts, if it didn't, then we wouldn't see these dogs right here, or these dog owners. Okay, so let me kind of save this and refresh. Okay, so we got rid of that comment there. Okay, so let's do a bootstrap form and get into this. So here we've got a container. It says pet owners. And then we got a link to add a new pet owner. And then here's our mapping of our cards. So maybe we put our search interface underneath this HR. We'll do a form. And this stuff gets better every day. So div class of row, we got a column that says search. So there's our search box. I'm going to want to give it a name or an ID probably. And we got a search button. We already have a primary button, so let's do a secondary button. And let's just kind of refresh and see how that looks. Okay, not great. We need some margin. So we're going to say MB4. Lots of margin on the bottom. And refresh. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Of course, there's a lot of things to do to make this look better. Okay, I'm not necessarily spending a lot of time on the looks here, but you could add icons. You could go to component libraries and find all sorts of search interface components that are, you know, much more beautiful than mine. Let me glance at something on my other screen. Okay, cool. So we're going to wire up a button click. We will say on click. We're going to call a function on submit search. So we're going to click this button, or actually instead of on, let's see, we could do form submission button. Trying to remember if it needs to be a form submission, which we need to put that on the form element, or if we're good just doing it on a button click. Don't think it matters, but let's test my theory. So here's a function for handle confirm delete. Let's do another function. Of course we need to prevent the default. Okay, so we need to pass in the event object. So we need to do a little arrow function here. So we'll call the function that way, pass in the event object, console log search clicked. So let's just wire up a simple button click, prevent the default submission, which it shouldn't be doing anyways, and okay, simple button click, close that. Okay, so now we gotta get Axios involved, and we're gonna wire up our keywords. So let's get a hook for keywords. Keywords, set keywords. So down here on our text box, on change, all right, so as they're typing in the text box, we're calling set keywords, and just to test that, right, I always throw that hook inside of a little heading just to test it. Refresh this, and as I'm typing in here, you can see it's updating in my heading. So my keywords hook is working. Okay, so we got to bring in Axios here. So we no longer need the search clicked. We know that's good. I wanted this to be asynchronous, so I'm going to rewrite my function using this syntax to get my try catch. Okay, now this is nice try, but it's not exact. Pretty close though. Where this falls apart is there's no search in my back-end route. So this wires me up to the back-end /API/pet owners $keywords. Again, that's what we're doing here. $keywords equals no, that's actually that I don't think this is going to work. That's what it suggested to me. So let me not do that. And get my order here. So if I put a comma after this, what comes next? Aha, that's right. Params keywords. Now this is short for keywords colon keywords, right? When you got these duplicate, the key is the same as the value. The shorthand is just that way. But here, when we click the submit search, we're going to pass this additional object with keywords in it. All right. And I don't know that data is what we need to set. So I'm just going to console log the data here before I do set pet owners. I'm just going to console log the data that comes back. Okay, so we're hitting my back end and we're sending some params this time. And let me refresh. Okay, looks like we're getting some data, which is good, but it's not the data that we would expect, right? So Jane, let's go now. It says keywords are undefined. So that was obviously on the back end. Let's save this. Keywords coming from rec.query. I'm going to go back here and do keywords, colon keywords. All right, so it's giving me keywords undefined. Now that's twice. If I hit it again, keywords are undefined. Cool. So a little bit of troubleshooting. And so I'm going to refactor this just to what I've had in the past. Because this with credentials, I passed this a little bit differently in the past. And the credentials I passed this way. And it was all part of this second argument. So params was here. Now I've got an auth token saved. If there's auth dot token, so when I log in my user, right, I got to send my token forward and store that token in my auth. And so I need to rewind this a little bit more. So let me go to my login user so that I can get this line working. Now, I do have it in local storage. So instead of storing it in auth, do I have it in local storage? Let me look. Application, local storage, no. No, I don't. So I have to send my auth token to my front end when I log in. So let's go to the back end. And so there's my JWT token that goes into my cookie. Suppose I could try and read it out of the cookie, but I could also just go token, JWT token. Okay, so that's sending my auth token to the front end. Now when I log in, I get my JWT token there. Now, when I log in, I pass down set auth to my login form. And set auth will have my token in it now because it was response.data. So now set auth now has that object has a token property. So we're going to have to clear. Let me log out and log back in. Okay. There's my auth.token. There's auth.token. Wonderful. So now, back here, authorization, sending my auth token. Like I said, this is a different way of doing that with credentials. That way it can all be done in this one object right here. So now, bear auth token, params keywords. Let's reboot the back end. Make sure front end's still doing okay. And let's go back to console. Clear that out. Okay. is does auth get oh, good point. It might not be auth, might be null here. Good point. Yeah, so I need to send in auth. Good eye, thank you. So the point is auth was not sent into the pet owner list. So kind of back out here, we set auth, but we're going to pass it down. Auth equals auth. Now we receive auth. And just for the sake of making sure that it does come through, let's put the auth token if there is an auth token, we'll put it right smack dab in your face. There you go. And now we get our data of 1. Success. It's Monday morning, but something's going right. And this is obviously in the console, so now we just need to do one more thing, which is we'll get rid of that. And again, kind of talk about the refactor here. There might be a different syntax where that with credentials kind of does this one line for me. They kind of do the same thing, and that you're just kind of passing your token from the front end to the back end. But this second argument in Axios, you know, it can take two things, the credentials and the params. And so I tried sending another object. Like I said, I tried sending 3 arguments, 1, 2, 3, but I was just guessing at it, and that didn't work. So I just refactored into what I knew worked. And then backing out of that, my auth hook didn't have a JWT token in it. So for this to work, I had to even rewind a little bit more, put that in there to get that one-liner to work, and then to get that one-liner to work. Okay. Now the data is an array, so that actually might work just as is. I thought I needed to do something different, but let's just kind of set the pet owners to the data, kind of refresh here, search for Jane, and there's Jane, and the puppers 1, or ooh, pupper space 1. So now we're able to search by keywords. Wonderful. If you guys are following along, I'm going to take a short, call it 10-minute break, and continue on with the rest of my search interface.
case I'm getting caught in something.
Okay, so kind of the next thing that we can do is a category. And so it says use a select field to pick a single classification. So this is for your lab, right? So I'm trying to help you for that. And, you know, classification on a bug is like, you know, category. I think there were certain values that it could be 4 or 5 different classifications, I think, of what kind of bug it may be. So, you know, when I think of classification, this is kind of like you're just categorizing your object as one type or another type. And so, you know, what category of pet owners, you kind of have to try and relate this back. So maybe even going all the way back to the database, you know, I got to brainstorm what are the different types of pet owners that you could have. And so again, classification is a category. I might, just to make it as similar as possible, I'll call it classification. So maybe we'll either add them as a customer or we'll do one or the other. We'll do two classifications. Either going to be a customer, meaning you could, like, I don't know, maybe you can buy stuff. You know what? No. Let's do classification of... It doesn't really matter. Trying to think of a good classification other than customer. I have a couple customers in the original customer. For the sake of this, you're either going to be a customer or an owner. You're going to be one of two categories. And just for the sake of demonstration is what I'm doing here. So we got 2 customers, and we'll make you this seems very similar to roles in a way, but nonetheless, classification of customer or owner. So we're going to go back to our back end. And we're going to accept a classification from rec.query. And if there's a classification, we set the match.classification. This is not right. Equal to that. And that's still working with match. So we're just updating the match part of the pipeline. So just by adding that, okay, let's start here. We got all of our owners. And if I now pass a classification of owner, we get 2 objects back. Customer, 1, 2, 3. So our backend looks good to accept a classification from the rec.query. Back to the front end, we need a drop-down list. Maybe in its own row. Div class name row MB4 this is a select. Let's see. So we got the value is empty, all owner or customer. And this will say select a classification. And this will say owner, of course. Customer. And now we got to bring in a hook, right? So let's go up top, and just like we did before, const classification. I'll just call this my classification filter. Set classification filter, just to be a little more explicit. And now in my select, which is down here, on change, okay, so our classification filter is an empty string at first, but when they change to one of these values, we modify our filter. Now let's put some bootstrap classes on this, which is form select. Make it look a certain kind of way, and like I like to do, I'll just put a little classification filter right in my H1, just to see that changing the text box changes that value. Which it does. And then we can say comma classification filter. Now this is done on a submit click. So you still got to click the button. So if I refresh this, and I'll just say owner, now you can see I got the 2 records. I'm not showing the classification here, but I easily could. But if I just show that, that's working. And if I were to throw in maybe a combo of classification and keywords, it's all playing nice together. So, you know, the only real difference there was that little category. And I guess what I could do is now go into my pet owner item and display the classification if I wanted to. So got keywords, got classification. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the hard ones for tomorrow, and then I'll do these last 2. I'm going to do like a Boolean closed, because that's always fun. Little challenges around closed, and then I'll do sort by. So these are the last 2 I'm going to do today. And so let's see, sort by, and I got to hold off on newest and oldest until I start dealing with the age of these items. Like, I don't have a created date on my data, and so I can't do the oldest and newest yet, but I can sort by title, classification. I'll just do a couple. I can sort by, maybe we'll do sort by name and or classification. So again, using a select to pick a sort order. So going back here, I don't want this to go the whole width. I'm gonna do call -4. There we go. Select the classification. Next up is sort. So let's get the back end to support the sort. Let's close what we don't need. Close, 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 back end. Okay. So start here. We're going to take a sort by parameter from rec.query. And we're going to start what field do we want to sort by default? Maybe let's sort by last name, because that's easy enough. Let's sort by last name by default. Last name :1. So then we send the sort into our pipeline. And if we back out here, we just get all of our pet owners. We got Doe, another Doe, last name of Gooden, Gudmestead 1. So you can see that the sort by last name is kind of the de facto that's working. And then we can come into here and switch on our sort by parameter. And in the case of first name, we're going to sort by first name. Last name, we can sort by last name. Default is last name. What else can we sort by? Classification. Break. You know, don't have a lot of fields to kind of sort by. But if I come into here and I add sort by, I'm going to change that to first name, like such. E, Hij, JA before JO, before M, before S. So sort by first name, let's sort by classification, which our customers would come before our owners. Okay, so alphanumeric sort by those fields. And now we just have to provide that support in a drop-down list, very similar to what we did before. So let's go up here, const sort by, set sort by. Set a default by last name, that's fine. pretty standard select, sort by, close one more div. You can figure it out. There you go. Okay. Refresh. And first name. Let's finish it off, right? So I've got a hook, but we have to send it in the sort by, refresh, and take a step back. Let's see what console is logging. Now, console is logging the data in the right. Oh, it's fine. Okay. This one's hard to see classification because you don't see the classification on the screen. But if I just say, hey, sort by your first name, click the search button, you get Evan up front. If you sort by last name, awesome. So that's sort by. Okay, and then we got a Boolean value, which is something like a bug being closed. So think about how this can make sense with our data. Oh, I guess one more thing is to test that they're all playing nice together. So the sort by last name probably makes sense to have a field on the outside of this, a label associated with. And a checkbox is the last one. So we need a Boolean field in the database. And so, you could have active, I'm just going to say active, like active customers or active owners, true or false. So we're just going to have one that's not active. Oh, I guess 2. Okay, so 3 active and 2 inactive. And so input type okay, so before I get to the front end, which I'll get there, let's go to the back end. And the thing is you're going to send a true or false from the front end, and it's going to be in a string format. I guess unless you convert it to Boolean, but probably it's going to be in a string. So so I'm going to accept an active and this goes in the match stage. So I say if active now if active equals a string true, then we send across a Boolean true, and the syntax for that, I wonder if that syntax would work, but match.active $EQ true. I'm going to very hard say else if it's a Boolean false, we set it to false. So you got to convert that string into a Boolean true or false, and that's the trick behind those. And that's on the match stage, which is already going in. So let's go here. To the back end. Active true, active true, active true. So that's getting our 3 Boolean trues back. And let's get our 2 Boolean false. So that's always the tricky part there, is getting that data type from the front end from a string, because whether you're sending it in Postman or React from the front end, it's going to be a string. So, a little hook for this. Show now this will be empty string at first. We'll do a little ternary thing down here on change. This is either going to be backwards or forwards. In other words, it's either going to be right or wrong. There's going to be the value of the checkbox should be unchecked. So when you check it, it should go true. This needs to be show active. So set show active should be true. Either got that forwards or backwards. Either way, this becomes comma active, col show active. Okay, so a little label here to help understand what's going on. Something like that. Okay. One last little bit of troubleshooting. Set show active. So I'm going to put this show active. That might be a Boolean true. It might not be a string. Oh, interesting. It goes, the value is on. One second here. That's what I'm doing wrong. So it's not going true or false. It's evt.target.checked. Got the wrong. It's not the value property because it's not a text box. It's a dot checked property. Went a little too fast over that one. That makes sense. It's a checked box, so we need to look at the dot checked property. And I might okay. Here yeah, where am I going wrong? write a little function here. And that's where this gets fun to troubleshoot. On the last step, and let me rewind, kind of log out. This is the fun that is React.
Oh, yeah.
Try a different browser. See if this is well, it's clear I need to do a little bit of troubleshooting, so I'm going to do that off of on my own time, and then I'll show you guys what the solution is when I find it versus continuing to hold, because I was 95% of the way done with this demo and then something broke. So I got to figure out what broke, and I am not sure at this point, so I got to troubleshoot. All right, so I'm going to stop it here and show you on the next one what the fix is.